Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for January 16th, 2025. Well, quite the volatility yesterday, and luckily I got what I wanted. I wanted that relief rally to continue to the upside. It got a little bit carried away in the Dow, but that's okay. That nice bullish move to the upside, relieving some of that selling pressure. So let's take a look at what we had happen overnight. Asian markets last night, mostly higher, with Shanghai up 0.28%. Hong Kong was up 1.23%. South Korea was up. India was up. We had the Nikkei up slightly, and Australia had a really good day, up 1.38%. If we take a look at European markets this morning, they are bullish across the board, but a little bit more on the modest side, with the DAX up 0.15%, FTSE up 0.67%. Now over in the CAC, they are really moving strongly here, up 1.96%. If we take a look at U.S. futures, a little bit of mix going on here in the U.S. futures. We've got Dow futures just slightly lower by 68 points. The S&P 500 futures are up 19.5 points, while the NASDAQ futures are zooming up again this morning, 115 points here at the moment. A lot of volatility in the pre-market here as we're getting some bank earnings reports. We're getting some job cut notices from different places. So a little bit of volatility going on here today. And I would expect that to only increase as we dip deeper and deeper into earnings reports. If we take a look at bonds this morning, well, unfortunately, bonds are not giving us any relief in their pressure. We're continuing to see those bonds stay stubbornly high. The 2-year bonds at 4.28%, 10-year bonds at 4.67%, and the 30-year bonds at 4.88% here on the day. If we take a look at oil, let's look at our Let's go to XLE here. We've got oil producers here pulling back just a little tiny bit on XLE. And we also have oil just slightly lower here this morning. Right now we've got oil futures down 85 cents at 77.85 a barrel. We have Brent crude also looking lower at 81.11 a barrel. Natural gas, on the other hand, is moving higher. UNG pushing up by about a nickel here this morning, so trying to get a little bit more bullishness going on there. Looking at those precious metals, taking a look at those, if we take a look at gold continuing to move on higher here this morning. That dollar has weakened just a little tiny bit here in the United States, and that is helping, as you can see, just a little teeny tiny weakening there in that dollar. Not enough to really be anything major, and it could re-strengthen today, but what that's doing is having that bullish effect on precious metals. Right now, gold is up $15.70 an ounce. It's been up a little bit more than that earlier this morning, so it's pulling back a little bit. Silver is also showing some bullishness, up 31 cents at 31.85 an ounce. Copper is moving just slightly higher here this morning, only up about 3 cents, but you can see in COPX it's not having that desired effect here. And platinum is higher, with palladium being just slightly lower, so a little bit of mix going on there. Then if we take a look at those cryptos here this morning, well, we've got Bitcoin just moving back. We touched 100,000 again on Bitcoin, but pulling back here this morning. Right now we've got $796 a coin lower on Bitcoin, or 0.80%. Ether is sharply lower, down 2.86% or $98 a coin, with a little bit of mix in those cryptos this morning. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Thursday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you very much for being here. I truly appreciate it. Let's take a look at these charts and see if we can figure out how we might approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at the charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be. Shake off that bias and just be really, really careful with this fear of missing out. Rush to chase these markets higher. So let's take a look at the diamonds here. Yes, beautiful gap up here yesterday on the diamonds. Remember, that is the first step in any bullish move. We're going to have to see how we deal with some of these resistance levels in the chart before we get too terribly excited about chasing in. Now, if those bulls continue to find inspiration today, then we want to see this resistance level get broken and push on through, and maybe we start pushing up towards some of these next areas. We still need to get past that big old dark candle right there. Maybe break up, I didn't draw that line very straight, but break up through that area here in the chart. So watch that carefully if those bulls can continue to push. If the bears, however, find some kind of inspiration here for the day and we were to push back down, if we lose yesterday's low in the chart, well, notice we have a very big gap that could get filled. There is some nice price support right there that could catch us, and if that were to slip, then I think we're coming back down and filling that gap here in the diamond. So watch carefully for that possibility here in the market. If we were to take a look at our SPY, SPY also had a really nice big popping move, and they're trying to press this higher this morning. Now, keeping in mind we're pushing into some resistance here in the chart, so let's watch that carefully. If the bulls can find that bullish inspiration here to keep pushing, well, let's look right up in here. Let's see if we can break that area in that big dark candle right there, and if we can get past that, well, we could push right up here, right into this pretty substantial area of resistance in the chart on the SPY. So watch that carefully. Now, if those bears were to find inspiration, you can see a push back down into here. Maybe we can catch and hold a little bit of price support here, somewhere around the mid candle yesterday in there. Watch that carefully. But if that were to slip, and we look at the lower side of that candle, well, then we run that risk of that breakdown and possibly even a filling of the gap in here on the SPY. Now, nothing showing in the chart that that's even remotely the case here yet today, but remember, we've got a lot of data coming our way. If we take a look at QQQ, a big gap up here this morning, mostly driven by TSMC. Good earnings results in there, so we're still very, very bullish here on this and pushing up. If I were to slide that trend line up there just a little bit and draw that a little bit more precisely, you can see we're right up here testing that downtrend here in the chart. So not a particular exciting move just yet, because we've got a lot of work yet to do here on the QQQ. But if those bulls can continue to find that inspiration, let's start reaching up here, and we need to see if we can get back up above that big dark candle here. So we've got a lot of work yet to do there on the QQQ. If the bears happen to find inspiration, well, maybe a pull back in here, we can catch a little support right along this area here in the chart. Looking right in there, and if that were to break, then look at the bottom of that candle, and of course that gap could of course be attacked as well. So watch that carefully in the Qs. And then if we look at our Russell IWM pushing resistance in the chart here, struggling with this resistance in the chart. Pretty substantial area. We've got kind of a triple whammy here of potential resistance areas in IWM. And you know, one of the things we see when we're pumping the Qs, rarely do we get enough energy here in IWM to supply some upside moves. So watch that carefully here. If those bulls do find that inspiration, we need to pop on through and get up here and test that downtrend area and some resistance in the chart. If the bears were to find inspiration, well, and they are finding a little bit of that here this morning at the moment. If we were to push lower, we might drop into this gap pretty easily and watch for a potential pullback into there. Let's take a look at our VIX. Now, our VIX yesterday had a nice drop. It really fell hard here in that VIX with that big surge to the upside. But one of the things you want to notice is we're still holding on to this upside trend. So we're going to need that bullish inspiration to continue to follow through here today to the upside to break this trend back to the downside and relieve some of that fear here in the market. So if those bulls can get going, we need to see that trend break. But if the bears come in with any inspiration here on the day and they start pushing back up, we'll want to be watching that pretty carefully here as that fear could rise. Now, if we look at our T20s, our T2122 yesterday, this is a big problem for us already, as we have already stretched up here dramatically in the chart. And this morning with the gap ups that we're seeing here in the pre-market, there is that possibility that we could push this right up in here into that bearish reversal zone. So watch carefully if there is any inspiration today on those bulls to continue to push. We're going to top out here pretty quickly in T2122, so watch that closely. If the bears, however, happen to find inspiration on the day, well, you want to notice we've opened a very big opportunity for those bears to attack if there is any reason for them to do so. So just keep a close eye on that. And then if we take a look at our T2108, our T2108, trying to push on higher here, breaking through, testing some resistance here in the chart. So we had a nice response here on this yesterday, and if they can continue that push to the upside, well, you can see these next areas of resistance up here are 50%, having half of our stocks above their 40-day moving average. We've got a long ways to go to do that, but watch that carefully. And of course, if the bears have any inspiration, well, we've created some support areas here in the chart to hold if those bears were to push back. Our T2107, a nice little rally yesterday, but I gotta tell you, it really wasn't all that impressive. Coming up, we got about 45% of our stocks holding above the 200-day. We still have some fairly significant resistance here in the chart for those bulls to break through. And with the bullishness this morning, perhaps they can just push right on through and do that, and then we can start progressing on up here toward 50% of the stocks above their 200-day. If for some reason those bears have anything to say and they start to push back in here, little support in here, and then of course we'd be watching this area here if those bears were to break back down through that area. And one of the reasons, guys, I think that is possible, even with all the good earnings reports and all the warm and fuzzies that we're getting in the market at the moment, is because we have no follow through. That big move yesterday in the market had no breadth to follow it. Really remarkable. It was a very lame day on the breadth side of things. So we're going to have to watch this pretty closely. This could give those bears, if they have any inclination to attack, that could give those bears some kind of inspiration here to say, hey, the bulls have no strength. It's time for us to engage. Watch that carefully here. There was just no breadth in the market to speak of to really follow through or show us that the bulls were as strong as it looked like in the charts. So watch that carefully. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar is a busy one this morning. We're going to get jobless claims here this morning. Right now they're expecting in consensus 212,000, so an increase in jobless claims, and that's probably going to be a good thing if we continue to see jobs weaken here in the claims numbers, simply because we're still worried about this inflationary pressure and jobs. So watch that carefully. If this comes in very weak, that's going to be a problem for the market, I think, and we could see some bearish reaction. So watch that carefully. Now, remember, yesterday we had a lot of activity here on the manufacturing. If you take a look at the Empire State Manufacturing, they were expecting a 0.1. It came in at a negative 12.6, showing that major weakening here in manufacturing. And if our Philly Fed continues that trend, you can see here they're expecting this to improve to a negative 0.7. If we get a big miss here, our manufacturing is in a terrible situation here. Nobody seems to care, but we'll want to watch that one closely today. And then, of course, retail sales are always important. Keep a close eye on this. They are expecting month-over-month retail sales to decline just a little bit from 0.7 to 0.5. Vehicles to improve by 0.4, and X vehicles and gas to improve to 0.4, both up from a 0.2. So keep an eye on those today. Then we've got import-export prices. They're looking for import prices to go to a negative 0.1 from a 0.1, and export prices to go up to a 0.1 from 0. So watch that. Then we're going to have business inventories here this morning. Business inventories are expected to come in flat according to consensus, and the housing market index. We'll want to watch this carefully. They're looking for a 46.0, flat with last time. Remember, this is going to be really important. If we continue to see house prices, home prices continuing to move up, that's also going to add to that inflationary pressure of the market. So keep an eye on those bond markets here as these numbers come out. After that, we've got a natural gas report, and then you can see some bond auctions in here and a Fed balance sheet. As we look into Friday, we're not done with the data this week. We've got housing starts and permits, industrial production numbers, Baker Hughes rig, and Treasury International Capital as we slide into the 3-day weekend and the inauguration of our new president. So be careful. There's some uncertainty surrounding that. Think about that carefully as you're planning your 3-day weekend and the activity that could occur on Monday while the market is closed. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor. Oh, you know what? We need to not do that first. We need to be taking a look at what's going on in our earnings calendar here this morning. So we have several earnings to be paying attention to here this morning. Bank of America has already reported. Nice little pop there. Bank of America may be up here trying to test resistance in the chart, see if they can break through there. Keep an eye on that. We've got FHN that will be reporting some of those regionals in here. A little pop and drop going on in that regional at the moment. IIIN trying to push a little bit higher. Metal fabricator here trying to push up. MTB will be reporting this morning. Another regional bank trying to get something going. Morgan Stanley, little pop and drop happening there on that, but it is just slightly higher up here trying to test those resistance levels in the chart. PNC Financial reporting today. That is a nasty little pop and drop here at the moment on PNC. We've got United Health. They are looking lower here this morning, but still trying to hold that little upside trend. And US Bancorp also showing a little bit of bearishness here this morning on their report. So keep that in mind. If we take a look at after the bell today, we've got OZK as a notable, and we've got JB Hunt as a notable this afternoon. So watch for those today. Let's take a look at some of those stocks that could be setting up for today. If you could do me that quick favor here first, though, if you could click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon, that helps me out a lot. Thanks so much for everyone who takes the time to do that and also clicks that thumbs up button and leaves a brief comment. That helps the channel probably as much as anything to continue to grow, helps that algorithm show these videos to more folks out there in the market, and thank you so much. I do truly appreciate it. Let's take a look at a few of these stocks. Remember, everyone, these aren't recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence and be very careful here in the market. We are expecting, I am expecting anyway, considerable volatility, and I would expect that volatility to continue to rise because there is a lot of uncertainty coming into this new administration, the tariffs and things that will be changing, some big changes likely on the way. So be really careful here, everyone. Watch that carefully as this market shakes out all of this data here affecting the market over the next few days, and of course the next several weeks as we transition through all of these earnings reports. First off, let's take a look at a few stocks that are looking kind of interesting here. I like the way eBay, big pop here on eBay, and now we've pulled back. We're kind of resting here along this price support. Keep an eye on that. eBay starting to look like it could hook around here and show that next round of bullishness to the upside if those bears can get going. So I would keep an eye on that. We have certainly seen an awful lot going on here in these energy stocks, and we heard from British Petroleum they're going to make some pretty substantial cuts in employment and contractor cuts in employment themselves anyway, to save some money, and typically that pushes a stock higher as they reduce costs. So watch this carefully here. British Petroleum in this nice little holding pattern here, nice little higher low. I would watch that, see if we can start pushing right on up here in BP. Worth keeping an eye on it. I'm going to say the same. We've seen lots and lots of strength here in these energy stocks pushing back up. Now, of course, that's going to be inflationary and could be a problem here for the market in the longer term. But as we can see, that oil pushing up here, any rest or pullback sets up an opportunity. I really like the way Occidental is resting in here after breaking through that resistance. So I would watch this closely here as well for that next opportunity for that to push on through to the upside. Keep a close eye on that. Carvana had a really good day pushing up here. Now, again, this is the first step in a move like this to break that downtrend. This did, however, create that little higher low. So any little rest or pullback in here, I think, sets up an opportunity that we could start pushing up and dealing with some of the resistance here on the chart on Carvana. Watch that carefully, though, as it approaches this big area of resistance. We could easily find a topping pattern in there on Carvana, so watch that closely. Still think old Ralph Lauren is looking pretty good in here, still setting up in this pattern. Little volatility in here, but it's looking pretty good for that upside opportunity. You know, it might be a good idea to keep an eye on gold and some of those gold miners. Big push through some resistance here. Any kind of rest consolidation in here, setting that back, then we may have that energy to push through this resistance here in the chart, and we might start progressing back up toward some of these highs. Keep a close eye on that, particularly if we start to see those bonds weaken. And when we see those bond yields weaken, you might want to take a look at bonds themselves. Bonds had a nice little pop up here yesterday If we continue to see those yields weaken, then watch carefully. If we're pushing this worry of inflation to the side and it's no longer going to be there, bond yields or bonds need to come up and bond yields should fall. And so I would be watching that carefully. And when that occurs, we will typically see the dollar weaken in value. If the dollar weakens in value, then look to those commodity prices like gold, like silver, for those upside moves as that dollar weakens. Watch that closely. Now, PHYS, physical silver, might be a place that you want to go. Physical gold might be a place you want to go. It's a lot cheaper to trade, and you're actually trading physical gold, not just paper gold like in GLD. And PSLV would be another one to be watching. And you can see we're starting to show some patterns in here that could bring that little bit of bullishness coming back around here in these charts, breaking those downtrends, a little resting pullback in here. I would be watching potentially in here, particularly if we're going to get really bullish in the market and see those bond yields fall. Watch the dollar value start to come down, and that's going to push commodity prices typically higher. So watch those carefully. Other places you might want to look is take a look at stocks like GDX, the miners in here. They're starting to come up. GDXJ would be worth paying attention to, and even things like aluminum starting to push back up here. If we get any hint of weakness in the dollar, watch some of these metals come back around. Now, when we take a look at steel, well, we're not great yet in any of these steel stocks, but you can see starting to push back up here in a little upside trend. I think we need that work in here to break through some of these big areas of resistance before we get too excited about it, but keep an eye on some of those steel. If we do see the dollar weaken, these will start to move to the upside. Take a look at Lunar here. Lunar, really nice looking chart here, holding support in this chart, showing that bullishness coming in yesterday. I think there's every reason to believe with a good bullish market push that we could continue to follow this trend to the upside. So keep an eye on that. May have to rest a little bit more out here toward the trend, but watch that carefully on that. GLW Corning looking really pretty good here, pushing up, and we know if tech is going to keep moving higher, well, Corning provides all the glass for most of those devices that we carry around. So watch that carefully here. If this can pop through, and I would probably wait for this at the moment for either a consolidation in here and then a pop through, or just go ahead and pop through and then let that resting pullback occur and look for that entry into the trade. Keep an eye on Corning. That's holding up pretty darn well. I have to tell you guys, there are still stocks out there that don't look good. If you're wanting something on the short side of the market, you can see we've got kind of a head and shoulders pattern showing up here on O'Reilly. That possibility here that we could get a failure in here on O'Reilly. Watch that closely. DGX is showing us that potential failure coming in yesterday. It's trying to pop back up here again this morning, but there are plenty of short trade potentials out there to be paying attention to as well. We're not just all bullish in the market. There are quite a few stocks showing that potential weakness. Peloton could be ready to move back down from this resistance and downtrend in here. Potential short set up there. We've got Nordstrom's it's in a buyout, not going really anywhere, but PLTR, this rally back up in PLTR makes me think of a potential failure could come along this resistance and downtrend. So watch that carefully. We're not all green everywhere. There is reason to be a little bit cautious and careful, and then considering all the uncertainty that the market's going to deal with, we'll want to be watching for both sides of the market. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thank you so much for being here. As always, I wish you all the best, and I'll see you right back here bright and early Friday morning. Have a great day, everyone.